right, welcome, Professor Gaber. Thank you for joining for this short interview.
Okay.
So what I want to ask you is, what do you think are the main challenges in Egypt regarding waste management or regarding certain fractions of waste?
Every challenge you can think of, it is a combination of challenges that related to the socio-cultural setting, economic situation, political situation, the accumulation of problems related to waste management over the last 50 years, handling the waste sector as not a priority sector for so many years. Infrastructure projects in Egypt for years meant roads, electricity, water, wastewater, but not waste management. And this is not only in Egypt. It is in most the MENA region countries. For years, waste management wasn't on the radar of the politicians and governments. Then over the years, you can find a city or a village that enjoys the main infra projects, but solid waste management is in a horrible situation. Then I think if the top of the challenges, if I may rank the challenges, it is a challenge related to get used to malfunctioning system. Here, if the solid waste will be accumulating in a stream around your university, you will be first unhappy, then you will be angry, and then you will be ashamed that the surroundings of your university is dirty. But when people get used to it, then they are not angry anymore. They are not ashamed at all to see dirty streets or dirty waterways. And to me, this is the biggest challenge, is to create this anger and to refuse that any government will not solve the problem. This is the way I'm asking myself, how at all in any locale you can work some way for the community, for the civil society, and for the government to reach this point that this is not acceptable. Then just to summarize, the worst situation in any country, in any community, is to get used to a malfunctioning system in solid waste management. Then they are accepting it.
So where do you need to start then to tackle the problem, you think?
Well, now all over the MENA region, there is like a movement, a realization that enough is enough, and the sector has to get what it deserves of attention. Then in Egypt, we have now major initiatives, major programs in solid waste collection, in building the infrastructure for a proper solid waste management, which means to have transfer stations, recycling and treatment facilities, landfill, proper sanitary landfills. You go to every country in the MENA region, you saw so many dump sites, no leachate collection. In many countries in the MENA region, we have facilities that produce so-called compost, but it is not compost. But we call it a nickname. We call it compost. And we even apply it to land, which is a horrifying story all over the MENA region. That, that there are so-called standards, but it is completely different from the proper regulations and the standards. And even sometimes the standards are okay. But to have a standard is one thing, and to apply it is another thing. The regulator, the governance system that will ensure that a regulation will be put in place. Then I think, again, to summarize this point, there are a lot of programs and projects all over the MENA region and in Egypt trying to mitigate a historical problem. I am just trying to emphasize that is accumulating poor management for solid waste management in any country to reach a point that you need to do double or triple the effort to solve this. Now, you are fighting multiple battles. You are trying to solve the current problems, because every day Egypt will produce, we are, say, 100 million, multiplied by average, half a kilogram per capita per day. Then you have 50 million kilograms of municipal solid waste per day is generated. And you are supposed to build the infrastructure to collect, transport, treat, and proper disposal. This is one front. But you have another front, which is to solve the historical problems, that you have tens of dump sites, which in Austria you don't have one single dump site. You have, I'm assuming that you have controlled landfill, not sanitary landfills, but I don't think you have, or if you think that you have dump site, come visit us in Egypt, and then I will show what is a proper dump site. And not only in Egypt, in many countries. Dump sites in Saudi Arabia, in Jordan, in Tunisia, Morocco, we have dump sites, which means it is nothing to compare with the sanitary landfill we visited yesterday. There's something else.
So, and what do you think the scientific community, or you as professor, what do you or can you contribute with your research to tackle?
I started my research in solid waste management with my first master student about 35 years ago. And we were trying to do co-composting of fecal sludge and the organic fraction from MSW in a village. And then I tried to do, my own, convert interest to applied research. But I thought that some of the applied research, what's so-called scientific papers, the academia produce, like sometime I say it is not producing, it is excreting or secreting, what's called scientific papers. I rather produce technical studies and technical reports and make money. Then my second life, which is, consulting, I'm the chairman of a consulting firm that we produce technical studies, not necessarily publishable in whatever ranked or whatever the name is, but I'm proud with it more than publishing in whatever scientific journals that most of the cases people doesn't read. I'd rather produce technical reports that I make money, and because I get money, I'm assuming that my client, at least at a minimum, has to read. Then my product technical reports, I'm sure it is well read. But again, it is, we all struggle to do, in my case, it is applied research. And some of my colleagues will go to the academia, like what you have here and everywhere. but the number of topics, the keywords for applied research in waste management in general in my part of the world is tremendous. So many topics, because we are facing the reality. We are facing real problems. Like the one example that I gave you about the compost-like output that is produced, or the contamination of compost, or what kind of mechanical biological treatment is best for Egypt, or should we start doing our own source separation? We tried and we gave up. Should we go again? And would it happen at all in developing countries that source separation will be working? What kind of criteria that will make a source separation program to work in Egypt? The recycling issue, the scavengers who they strip all the recyclables in the upstream. And then you talk about mixed MSW in Egypt. And it is a joke, because it is not anymore what you have in the textbook, and you call it mixed MSW. Come on. What we have in Cairo, we call it the same, mixed MSW, but this is not like yours. It is not. And when you talk about source separation, and you separate the wet from the dry, or the organic from whatever, it is quite different. You talk about waste characterization, and maybe you have good archiving for waste characterization, different areas in Europe. This waste characterization in our part of the world is almost unknown. And I tell you, 90% of the published reports in the World Bank, Habitat, you name it, about waste characteristics in the developing countries are wrong. It is totally irrelevant, because it was done without it is, first of all, it is funny because you can't compare. If you look to the famous report that the Habitat and the World Bank produced a few years ago about comparing solid waste management in, I think, 10 different cities, something like that. But when you put the table and you put columns and you put the organic fraction, it is not comparable, because it was done differently. The sampling was different, the analysis was different, and then it's stupid to put in a table and think that this is, you can compare. Then I mean, we have a lot of challenges, and I think by bringing in countries like Egypt to cooperate and to be open to whatever had done in Europe and other parts of the world is the only way out. Just we need to benefit from your successes and mistakes, because you have as good lessons that you have some horrible lessons too. Yeah. Then I read about someone wrote a beautiful article about reviewing the landfill directive and what happened in the application. Then I think what I want to say that we are prepared to learn from your successes and your mistakes, and to use it in our part of the world just to save time and energy.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.